The Canon 5D Mark I released in 2005 and the Nikon D700 released in 2008 are two of the most iconic, heavily praised, and universally loved full-frame DSLRs from an era when 12 megapixels was enough for anyone. After doing a dedicated video on each of these cameras, a lot of you asked me to go out and shoot them side by side, so I did exactly that. Twice, actually. In today's video, I'm sharing the results with you so we can compare and you can decide which one is right for you if you are thinking about purchasing. To keep things as fair and even as possible, I set both cameras to shoot JPEG and RAW. I used the standard color profiles with no extra adjustment. I also used the closest matching lenses I had, which were these two nifty 50 1.8s. I stuck with aperture priority with ISO locked off at 400, auto white balance and aperture ranging from f4 to f8 as I was mostly shooting in bright sunny conditions. The only difference in the way I shot these cameras was I dialed in -1 exposure compensation on the Canon because it tends to overexpose in bright sun. I did talk about this in my recent video on the 5D and a lot of you commented and said that this is a common issue. I'm giving you examples of the JPEGs and edited RAWs so we can look at them, talk about them and compare them side by side. And then at the end of the video, I will be revealing which one is my favorite. So looking at the JPEGs, I definitely prefer the 5D. They're just looking so much more punchy and saturated. The D700 images look more like RAW files to me. They're looking quite flat and neutral. To me, the 5D looks like it's biasing towards a warmer color temperature, and the D700 is much cooler and at times has this kind of greeny cast to it. I don't know what you guys think, but these reds from the 5D just look absolutely amazing, and this is exactly what I am looking for in a photo. Okay, now let's have a look at the RAWs. So these images have been processed in Lightroom and adjusted to my personal taste, so keep that in mind. This is what I would class as an ideal final image. I tend to use Adobe's adaptive color on some images, and I like to add a bit of grain and dehaze to give my photos a more organic look to them. So what I think we can see here is that the D700 is technically a better camera, which you would expect being 3 years newer than the 5D. In saying that, the 5D just has this esoteric charm that I don't think the D700 can match. Whilst it's pretty marginal and subjective here, I just prefer the slightly more imperfect, organic and warm way the 5D has captured these scenes. I'm sure if you played around enough, you could find a way to get that same result from the D700 though. Even with -1 exposure compensation, some of the 5D files are still slightly overexposed. I don't really think this is much of an issue. It's giving them a nice, like, bright look. Whereas the D700 images seem to have a flatter, more even, but arguably less striking look to them that just needs more editing to get them looking punchy. It seems to really bias towards protecting the highlights, whereas the 5D has zero interest in protecting the highlights. Essentially, even if they were over or under exposed, it didn't really matter. I was able to salvage them. But the D700 definitely has more information. I took a few very boring, don't judge me, shots of some dynamic scenes just to explain this point. So as you can see here in the straight out of camera JPEGs and RAWs, the two cameras were able to manage a pretty extreme balance of shadows and highlights. Coming up, I'm going to talk about the actual user experience of both of these cameras. But before I do, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Squarespace. If you're a photographer looking to showcase your work in a more meaningful and professional way, Squarespace is the place to do it. The template options for photographers are just perfect. You can create beautiful galleries to display your projects or commercial work, all with an intuitive drag and drop design. I've been able to showcase all aspects of what I do as a multifaceted creative, and you can too with Squarespace. It's super easy to update my website because I use the asset library to keep all of my content in one place. So when I want to switch things around, it makes it really seamless. Squarespace isn't just a place to share and showcase your photography though. I know so many of you dream of selling prints or zines of your work, and Squarespace has everything you need to set up an online store and take payments seamlessly. It really is a game changer for any creative existing online right now. If you need a website or you are looking to renew your existing one, then you can head to www.squarespace.com/LucyLumen to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using code LucyLumen. If you love the channel, make sure you click that link below because it supports me and you get an awesome Squarespace website in return. Let's talk about the ergonomics and also the shutter sound of the cameras because that is something that is very important to me. Interestingly, the D700 has a shutter sound that reminded me of a vintage film camera. Not exactly the same, but it has that looser, clickier, kind of like mechanical sound to it, which you would think I would like, being Lucy Lumen, but I actually prefer the shutter sound of the 5D. And I figured out why. It's because it sounds like a scene in a movie where, the wife is having an affair and the private eye is like taking all those like millions of photos of them doing it. And yeah, that sound just feels like really nostalgic and from the movies. And when I'm using it, feel like I'm getting all these exciting photos. Moving on from the sounds of the cameras, let's talk about the ergonomics. Both are excellent. Both feel phenomenal to use, especially the 5D. It just feels brand new. It feels so solid. It feels like something that would be made today. D700 is still a great user experience and ergonomics, but it does feel a little bit looser. I generally find that Canon's build quality is superior to Nikon's. Shall I guess? Both of these are full frame DSLRs, so they're pretty heavy. They're not compact cameras, and carrying both of them around twice in the Australian heat was not fun. I don't recommend, but I'm interested to know which one is heavier. So I'm going to weigh them here. I'm feeling like the 5D feels heavier, so let's see. So this is coming in at 913 grams. I'm not sure what that is for all of you Americans watching. Okay, and the D700 is heavier, coming in at 1,096, so like just over a kilo. Despite them both being quite heavy to carry around, I always feel like it is so worth it because I'm in love with the photos from both of them usually. So I'd much rather take one of these out than something else that's really compact, but I'm just not as into the photos. In terms of button placement and, just the user experience of changing settings and all of those types of things, it's fairly marginal and I can't sort of criticize either one of them too much. But for me, it's probably the D700 that would be the winner, just for a couple of little reasons. I'm not super in love with the big wheel on the back of the Canon 5D, but you can disable that. So it's really not a huge deal. In saying that, I do like and appreciate the mode dial on the 5D because it's pretty much exactly the same as the Canon film cameras that I use a lot. So yeah, just feels like second nature to me. I'm going to change my mind live on camera. I take that back. I prefer the button placement of the Canon 5D because of the mode dial. With the Nikon, you have to press the mode button and then, change it through the screen. Just feels more long-winded to me. I'm really used to this. I look at it, I know straight away. When I was out shooting these side by side, obviously I was taking one photo and then taking the exact same photo with the other camera. And to be honest, I didn't really notice any difference between the clarity in the viewfinders. Overall, this isn't a comparison point, but just a statement to be made about SLRs. Looking through the lens optically and, seeing everything come into focus is just such a beautiful experience, and it's one that you kind of just can't beat. I think that is really one of the defining reasons that I keep coming back to these cameras over mirrorless cameras. I think, I'm open to trying anything, and I think you can make anything work for you to an extent when it comes to cameras. But, there's just something about these that I just cannot stop using and want to use and just enjoy infinitely more than I do when I'm using any other camera. When I was out in full sun shooting these cameras, I didn't really notice any significant difference between the autofocus The Canon is known to be less accurate when not using the center point, and the D700 doesn't seem to have this issue. I haven't really used the 5D in low light yet because I've only had a chance to shoot it just during the day, so I would have to report back to you on that one. I know that the D700 can struggle in very low light though. In terms of manual focus, with the 5D, you can get a focusing screen, but I have just been YOLOing without that, and it's been okay because I mostly shoot pretty stopped down. But if you were putting manual lenses on the 5D regularly, that might be something to look into. Also, PSA, some people commented on my last video saying when you put M42 mount lenses on the 5D, it can block the mirror when you're at infinite focus. So that's really good to know. Thank you. The D700 has a little electronic focus aid that has tiny arrows and a dot that lets you know when you've hit focus. So that's definitely an upgrade in that area, and it's very nice to have. Overall, I just think 12 megapixels on a full frame camera just has a certain magic to it. It's just like this magic combo that you just really don't get in newer cameras with more megapixels. It doesn't seem to matter what is brought out or what we are buying and using that is newer. It seems so many of us online are coming back to these cameras and just feel compelled to share with each other how amazing the final result looks. I know for me, obviously, you know, I like cameras and I own a lot of cameras, but the most important thing is that final image. And using these has been such a great experience for somebody that's been, you know, shooting film for a long time and, you know, wants a certain look. Another point I want to make here about these cameras in general is that they are so flattering for portraits. This isn't a style of photography that I'm doing a lot, but my partner takes a lot of portraits of me and we have done some things like that for work. And they're just so much more pleasing than what you would get from something with a really high resolution sensor that's like showing up every single little imperfection on your face. I feel like these are just really flattering. And if you are somebody who is taking a lot of portraits or pictures of people, then these would definitely be great. All right, so now that we have compared all of the aspects of these cameras, it's time to tell you which one was my favorite after this experiment. Ultimately, in terms of output, it has to be the Canon 5D. I think objectively and on paper, the Nikon D700 is a far superior camera when it comes to features and technical capabilities, but there is just something intangible about the 5D images that I am just so in love with. This just goes to show you that it's not always about the specs of the camera or how capable it is. I know the D700 is so much more capable in low light, for example. But for me, using the 5D, I am just thinking about this camera all the time. I am wanting to get out and shoot it. Every time I do use it, like in a recent photo walk video, I loved the images I got and it's just really motivating me to want to get out and take photos. Let me know what you guys think below though. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. If you own both or you've used them before, let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching to the end. The D200 is what is coming up next on the channel. So I'll be doing a road trip with this. It's a crop sensor. CCD gets a lot of love online. So I am so excited to shoot this. I'm going to go on a little road trip to test it out and bring you that. So make sure you're subscribed, turn on your notifications, give me a thumbs up, hype the video to help it get seen out in the algorithm there so other people that love these cameras can watch this video. I really appreciate I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.